This is Maggie and Jazz and is it Fosse?
Fosse.
Fosse is coming down the stairs. And what's the puppy's name again?
Petey.
Petey, Petey, come here, buddy. This is Petey. He's just visiting. He's 6 or 7 month old, and he's an awfully cute dog, and he's got a nice energy. You have a little bit more of an anxious energy, and this is really her roadmap to success. We work with all the dogs, but primarily this is the focus. They want to work with her. Now, she had a barking problem. She's stressed out. She's anxious. She's twitchy. I think a lot of this was when I asked the guardians what rules they had. Really didn't have any rules. Dogs kind of go through life probing to determine where limits are. If they don't have rules, we can't be consistent. We're not having good timing, and those are some of the important factors that dogs learn by. So I went through a lot of dog training tips and secrets with the guardians. I'm going to try to encapsulate some of them here. Sit, including passive training. We'll start out with passive training. Passive training is simply waiting for your dog to do something you like and rewarding it within 3 seconds and saying whatever the command word is for it. So if your dog walks over to you, pet it and say come. If it sits down next to you, reach over and pet it and say sit. If it lays down, I like to say crash. I like coming up with fun command words because dogs can actually read a human facial expression. If you're smiling, they know you're happy. Yeah, I'm happy with you right now. So the more that we reward desired actions and behaviors, the more the dog will engage in those. And people are always amazed at how well my dog comes to me, but every time he comes to me in the house, I pet him and say here. So when I'm at the dog park and I say here, he's more than happy to come to me because here to him just means come and get a little love from the owner. A lot of us use our dog's commands in a buzzkill capacity. We're at the dog park, and then we say come, we put the leashes on, and we leave. Well, I was having fun at the dog park. You said come, and now come means the end of fun. So the more that we do passive training, rewarding the dog for these desired actions and behaviors, the more they're going to engage in them. Now, another thing we went over was what I call petting with a purpose. Right now, I think the guardians have been petting the dogs anytime they jumped up on them or requested attention, demanded, nudged them. And if the dog tells me what to do and I do it enough, then after a while, the dog starts getting the impression, I'm not just peers with my humans, I have more authority than my humans. And I'm pretty sure that was the case here. So a lot of us like to think of rules as a negative, especially when we're young, because when we finally have no rules, and we look at rules as as negative. But rules can help a dog feel more comfortable, more confident. Come. And so the more that we have rules and structure in there, the more we have an opportunity to demonstrate that we are a leader because we are enforcing those rules consistently. So let me see. Some of the rules we went over, not being allowed on the furniture. This is probably the last hurrah for you on the furniture for a little while. Because for dogs, the higher they sit, the more rank or status they have. Now, if we do get to the point, like after a month or however long it is, and we let the dog back on the furniture, it should be only with an invitation and only for good behavior. So we invited Maggie up on the furniture and she starts growling and barking. Now she has to get down. And or if I invite her up on the furniture and she gets down to get a drink of water, as soon as she comes back, she would need another invitation to get back up. The dogs also should not be within 7 feet of anyone who's eating. He's like, I'm done. And to be within 7 feet of eating, like I talked about in the other video, is a challenge. And so if Maggie's eating and one of the other dog comes near her and she growls, that's not necessarily resource guarding. Now, in her case, it may be, but it's a warning. Hey, I don't want you so close. It's inappropriate for a dog to be within 7 feet of another dog who's eating. So we want to make sure that we're enforcing this consistently. We just got done, this is the end of the session, we just got done feeding all the dogs in a structured way. Now we fed her separately because of a resource guarding issue, and follow the instructions above, then I'll make sure that we take care of that so she's no longer doing that. But for the other dogs, we made them leave the room as we prepared the food and put it in the bowls. And every time the dogs tried to come in, we stopped what we were doing, we addressed them. As soon as the dog got behind the line, we took a step back, we paused. Make sure you pause in between each step to punctuate your movements. And then if the dogs stay in place, we take another step backwards. And we're keeping our chest pointed towards the dogs. Then we reach over and we do the scoop. If the dog comes in, we stop what we're doing and rush towards them until they get across the line. Then back up one step at a time until we can repeat that process. Eventually the dogs will all wait at the line and they understand I'm not going to be able to come in. Then we put the food down. We use the third escalating consequence to march towards the dog until it got at least 1 square away. That was the rule that I came up with here. 2 squares would probably be a little bit better. But basically, you just want to see that, and we're going to feed the dogs one at a time. Now, she would get fed separately because of her resource guarding issue. The puppy would get fed separately because he's just still a puppy figuring things out. But for the 2 boys, we want to feed them in a structured manner, and the human needs to eat something first. Then we're going to feed whoever is calmest. If everything is equal, we feed Fossil first. Fossil? Fosse. Sorry, Fosse. It's an unusual name. The first time I've had a dog with a Fosse as a handle. So we'd feed. Oh, okay. We'd feed him first unless he's being a pill. If he's being persistent, persnickety, then we might feed Jazz first. And eventually we'll have her in the equation as well. Because she is so insecure, I would probably feed her second to last if the puppy's here, or last if the puppy's not here. So that she has to wait for it and sees the other dogs eating first. That helps build and engender a little bit more respect for the other dogs. She's a puppy. I mean, she's really a puppy. So her job is to push and see what she can get away with the humans as well as the other adult dogs. Now, it's important to remember, anything our dog's doing when we pet it is what we're reinforcing. This is why we want to not pet the dogs if they're jumping up on us, if they're barking at us, if they're nudging us, doing something we don't want, because we're just rewarding that behavior. Same thing, or not same thing, but anything the dogs do in our presence that we don't disagree with, we're also giving 2 thumbs up to. So if she's mean to the puppy, or she starts growling, we have to, not food related, just other related, we need to make sure we disagree with her right away. Remember, you have a window of 3 seconds to correct or reward your dog for them to make the connection, but it has to be repeated enough for the dog to understand. So for these rules, make sure you're consistent with them for the next month, or as long as these problems are still going on. Let me see. Other rules I have is I make the dog sit before we let them in or out of a door if the door is closed. If I go to the door and say sit, the dog doesn't sit, I walk away from the door, wait 1 minute, then go back to the door and say sit again. If they don't sit the second time, I walk away for 2 minutes, next time for 4 minutes, next time for 8 minutes. Each time the dog doesn't comply, I'm asked to wait twice as long before I'm generous enough to give it another opportunity. Now, if I take them to the door and both boys sit when I say sit, she doesn't, I would let them out and not let her out. And as soon as her butt hits the ground, then I would open the door and let her out. So sitting is a more subordinate position. The more we ask our dog to sit, the more they're kind of almost saying please or thank you. And the more that they are respecting us by showing us, I am saying please, can I go outside by sitting at the door. Let me see, petting with a purpose. We want to make sure that we stop petting the dogs when they demand it, or even if we just want to pet the dog. We're still going to ask the dog to sit, and when it sits, we're going to pet it under its chin and say just the word sit. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. Let me see. If the dog's already sitting, ask it to come and sit over here, or ask it to lie down. It just has to do something to change its state. After we do this enough, the dog will come and sit in front of us to prepay for attention. When it does, we want to reach over and pet him under the chin and say the word sit. Now, she wants to go away. It's all right. We can pet a dog anywhere we want. We just don't want to pat them on top of the head because patting creates a nose-down orientation. And if we're rewarding the dog for something we want, we'd like to pet them under the chin to facilitate that nose up. Yes, you're going to be a little bit of a pill, huh? I'll switch you over here. Now, you can pet them in a small circle on their chest and a slow circle to make them feel calm. Now, right now, she is breathing a little heavy, so I'm not trying to pet her very much. But if she was nice and relaxed, that would be a good time to pet her in a slow, smooth stroke and say the word zen, or chill, or relax, or whatever the word is. We want to put it in context. A lot of us tell our dog to relax when it's excited. And we say it only when it's excited, and after a while, relax means get excited. So instead, when the dog is calm, we want to pet it and say calm, or whatever the word is. Then later on, when it's excited, we can actually say calm, and now it has a point of reference. Let me see, what else? Because she's a little bit of an insecure dog, I would like the guardians to go to YouTube and find some resources. Oh, he's on the furniture? Mm-hmm. Now, one other thing is the dog gets on the furniture, what we can do, off. Now, what I do for the furniture rule is I usually say off once. The dog doesn't get off. I put my hand behind their butt and I push them firmly to the edge so they feel like they're about to fall. Dogs don't like unstable footing. Then they will jump off on their own. Well, then I would pet the dog and say off to create a command word. Every time I get off the couch, I get a reward. So then when I say get off, they're more inclined to do so. Now, another way to do it, if you have a treat, is take a treat and toss it on the floor. They get down on the floor. As soon as it touches their mouth, then we can say the word off as well. Problem with that technique is sometimes the dog will jump back up trying to get more treats. So you have to pick and choose your battles. Make sure that we're not repeating command words over and over. I gave the guardians a couple of what I call watch words. So if we come in the room and we see someone's petting one of the dogs and it's standing, we're going to say paycheck. And that means I suspect you may have forgotten to pet with a purpose. The person should stop petting, tell the dog to sit. When he sits, pet him on the chin, and we can say, I actually asked him to sit before you flushed the toilet. When you flushed the toilet, he got up and I continued petting, and David said that's okay. Now, even if we just want to pet the dog, we still want to ask the dog to sit or come or lay down or do something first, and then we can pet a dog for an hour after that. But this way, the dog will learn that I have to earn my keep. I have to earn attention from the humans. And the more that they do that, the more they're going to be willing to do that in other capacities as well. We went over the escalating consequences. Dad right now is saying sit, sit, sit. And one of the things we don't want to do is repeat a command. So right there, the dog's laid down, so we can pet it and say crash, or whatever the word is for lay down. But the more that we repeat a command, the less we mean it. So if I say sit, 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 the dog's like, we say it the 13th time he says it. I'm superstitious. So it was almost Halloween. So instead, when the dog sits, we use passive training to say sit, and then the next time we tell it to sit, it's more inclined to do so. So the watchword I use for that is rerun or repeat. So we come in the room, somebody's saying sit, sit. We say rerun, they go, and then we might use the hand motion. I like to use my hand. It looks like I'm cupping a treat, and I go over the dog's head. Usually this facilitates a nose-up orientation. They can only look up so much, and they get more elevation. They put their butt down on the ground. As soon as they put their butt down, I lower my hand, let it lick it off my hand, and then I tickle under the chin, and I say the word sit or whatever the command word is. After a while, you can go like this, and the dog will come and run it because it looks like you have a treat for him. When you're doing this, the higher you go, the less it's for the dog. The lower you go, the more it's for the dog. So if you say come, and the dog doesn't come, what I would do is make a kissing sound like, and you couldn't see the puppy, but he looked right up. And I would start lowering my hand. Let's see if I can get the other dogs to work. Oh, there we go. So just by going low, even though my hand is empty, that attracted the dogs. Then I go put them in a sit. I go over their head. Sit. Come on, buddy. This is we're filming this. This is where the real deal. It's like, you don't have a treat in there. So you want to have a treat in your hand when you're doing this for the first month or so, and after a while it becomes muscle memory. See if I can get the puppy to do it. Sit. Good job. You get an extra treat because you made me look good. Well, I'll give it to you later. I don't have any more in my pocket. All right, so we're going to use the escalating consequences to disagree with dogs when they do things we don't want. First thing is we hiss only one time per incident. Mom was hissing multiple times. And make sure we moderate our hiss. I have a level 1 hiss, like it's, I have a level 5, like tss, and one that's even higher than that. So next time you're on the 405 and caught traffic, practice a level 1 hiss, then a level 10 hiss. Somebody cuts you off, give them a level 5 hiss. It would be better, probably safer for you on the California freeways, but also it helps you practice those. Second thing we do is we stand up abruptly. I didn't want you to stand up though. Standing up is your I mean business position. So you stand up and turn to face the dog. Remember, your authority goes whatever direction your hips are pointing. So we stand up abruptly, we're going to pivot and keep that dog in front of us until it's stationary. As soon as it's stationary, stand, sit, or lie down. We're going to take 2 steps backwards. We're going to pause 1 second. Remember, we pause in between movements to punctuate. And after that 1 second pause, then we can go back to doing what we were doing. That's the second consequence. The third consequence is to march directly at the dog until the dog turns sideways to you or greater. As soon as the dog turns sideways, stop, wait for the dog to be, and then we go to the second consequence. We're pivoting. As long as that dog's moving, as soon as it's stationary, we take those 2 steps backwards, we pause again, then go back to doing what we're doing. The only time that wouldn't work is if the dog is in a no-dog zone. So if I'm eating something here, the dog's not allowed to be within 7 feet of me. So if a dog walked closer and I got up and marched at it, turned sideways, but he's only a foot away, well, he still needs to be 6 further feet away. So I'd walk and bump into him until he gets to the line. And once he gets to the line, that's where I stop enforcing it. That's how we enforce invisible lines like we do when we're feeding or around the dog's bowls when we're eating. Remember, when we're feeding the dogs also, we can change our environment. I laid one of the chairs down on its side to create a little bit of a barricade, and that made it was a smaller area that I had to defend. So that's something you might want to do initially. Eventually, you'll be able to do it without. But I would probably have, since we have multiple people in the house, have everyone pick a dog when we're feeding. So that way we only have to work on one dog at a time. And again, Maggie, we're not going to have her involved in this because of the resource guarding problem until she's fixed that. All right, so the escalating consequences, I kind of skipped around. Hiss. Second one is stand up abruptly, turn to face. Third one is march towards the dog until it turns sideways, unless it's in a no-dog zone. Then we keep on bumping into it. Fourth thing is we do is the leash timeout. I'm guessing we might do a little bit of leash timeout with her. She's insecure. She barks and moves away, and she keeps barking. Well, if we put her on a leash and step on the leash about a foot or 2 feet away from her, we prevent her from being able to move away. It stopped her from barking immediately. Now, we don't want to do that too much. Sometimes we're going to have to do it, but we'd prefer to have her just learn that barking is not going to get my way, and a lot of that is going to come from enforcing rules consistently. Also, look for ways to delay gratification. The dog wants to eat, make them wait a little bit longer. They want to go out the door, wait a little bit longer. We're playing fetch, make them wait a little bit longer for that. The more that they delay the gratification, the better self-control they have, especially if they're the ones that are restraining themselves. Now, we have an iFetch here. The Guardians actually know the inventor of the iFetch. And so that's a great machine, but it spooks her. Now, we went over counter conditioning. And message me if you can't remember how to do this. I can share videos with you. What we do is we take a high-value training treat and let the dog start chewing it. Then we present a sound or a sight or a stimulus that the dog is going to be reactive to. But we do it at a lower volume or at a greater distance or lower speed so the dog is able to process it. Now for her, I'm guessing the eye fetch probably, it's that sucking sound and the clicking sound as it spits the ball out are probably sounds that are hard for her. So what I might do is I might actually go somewhere where there's a door right here and have somebody over here with the eye fetch with the closed door, and we're on the phone or we can talk to each other, and I might start feeding the treat and then as I drop it. And so as soon as she starts chewing on it or licking on the treat, and then we drop the ball in there and it shoots, and it's on the other side of the door. So she can't see it. All she can hear are those sounds. But because she's getting this high value training treat, at the same time she hears them, after a while, that sound represents, I'm getting a tasty treat. After a while, you pull up the eye fetch and she starts going, or she'll start drooling because she's associated that with getting a treat. The other thing is, breaking things down in individual steps when we're desensitizing. And so for counter conditioning, we might first get her used to listening to sound. And if the sound on the other side of the door is too much, she stops taking the treat. And the person on the other side of the door move further away, or you move further away. Keep increasing the distance until she can relax. And then we start counter conditioning, and then each time we do it, we get a little bit closer unless she stops eating the treat or reacts. If she stops eating the treat or reacts, she's telling me it's too much for me. So we back the stimulus up one step, practice a couple more times, and then try practicing it again. So we have to go at the dog's pace, not at our pace. We live in an instant gratification society. We move things too far, too fast, especially with counter conditioning. You have to wait for the dog to be ready before you can take that next step. If you do it right, you'll fix the problem for good. I'm trying to think what else. Am I forgetting anything? All right, well, Maggie, it was very nice meeting with you, sweetheart. You did very good. This is Maggie and the Other Dog's Roadmap to Success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it. Right, Maggie? Whatever.